What is up, YouTube, and welcome back to Sound Shapers. If you are here for the first time, welcome. I'm Nick Johnson. This channel is all about diving into the aspects of audio and just exploring the awe and wonder of sound, whether it be for music or ambient sounds, field recordings. I just love audio. And to people that know me, that may not come as a surprise. But welcome to the channel. Today we have something very, very special for you. I have taken an adventure. I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we have the beautiful Sandia Mountains. And a little farther north of Albuquerque, there's a little town, mountain town called Placitas. And Placitas is on the north side of the mountain, and it allows you to go and drive up into the mountain and go all the way around the mountain. There's creeks and there's beautiful nature out there. So what I did, long story short, is I took my field recorder, I went and found a creek, and I have a contact microphone. A contact microphone is something that you can place on a surface, right? If I were to place the microphone right here, I could literally hear my heartbeat. So what I did was I took that contact microphone and I placed that microphone on a log in the middle of the creek. This log was laying across the creek, the water was going under it, and it wasn't a very big creek by any measure. So today we're going to explore what the inside of the log sounds like with the creek going through it. So without further ado, let's get going. So this is basically the outside ambience that I'm about to show you of the creek. It's not the actual contact microphone. It's more of just the outside water. So to be correct, this is the contact mic plus the outside microphones on the field recorder. I was using a Tascam Portacapture X8. And that allowed me to really capture the sound in high quality. So here's what the creek sounded like. Peaceful, right? Do you hear all that high-pitched noise? It kind of gives it the sound of like the night sounds of nature. I'll play it for you again. So, that is not actually the nighttime sounds. That is the internal sound of the log being captured by the contact mic. And so, this is what the whole setup looked like. See this right here? That is the contact microphone. This area right here, the thing that it's resting on, is another piece of wood. I'm not sure if it's part of this log that's going through the creek, but it's a piece of wood that's protruding outside of the creek. And I was like, wow, that's got a nice flat surface. So I put that contact microphone on this piece of wood, right? And if you notice, there's this other stick here. I went ahead and MacGyvered this setup because when you press against a contact mic, the internal sounds of whatever you're placing it on, you can hear them clearer. So here's what the contact microphone sounds like by itself. No processing. So here's the setup. There's the Portacapture. Got my headphones plugged in, a little charging port hooked up to a power bank. Excuse the movement, I was on a steep hill. I was trying not to fall into the creek and splash all over the microphone. But there's the whole setup right there. Let me go ahead and back over to there. So you got the contact mic. The cord was actually going into the water. I'm not sure if it's in the water or not, but that changes the sound as well. If you touch that cable, you'll hear obvious thumping sounds. So it's very, very sensitive. I was able to MacGyver this like I was talking about. I buried this stick in the mud, and then I allowed that stick to rest on top of the contact mic. So as you notice, when I play this, you can barely hear the water sounds. And to be honest, it's not that impressive to listen to if you were thinking the same thing. So when I imported this audio, I was skeptical. I was like, why? What's so special about this? And so I started to experiment. And the first thing I ended up doing was, if you turn this audio up, you turn the gain up, you start to hear some of the magic. So there's a good 14 dB addition. And you start to actually get to hear that water. So when I was experimenting on this on my own, I was like, okay, well, there's some high-pitched resonances in there that I'm not too sure if it's adding to the listening experience. So I went ahead and I put Soothe 2 on it. So here's Soothe 2. Notice how it's creating a large dip of frequency right here. All that high end is being taken out of the audio, giving a much more pleasing appearance. So it's like, okay, I'm liking that. So this is where things start to get interesting. When you add an EQ, all I did was I boosted 10K. Now that we took that resonant quality out, that's right around 5K, 5.4. Now listen to what happens when you add the EQ. Now, when you just kind of sit with that and you let that audio simmer, I was noticing that I was starting to feel a little more relaxed. It was giving me that sound like, or that feeling like I was sitting outside in nature, but there was some unique spin to what I was hearing. It felt like I was hearing nature like I've never really experienced it before. And so that was exciting for me. I figured, well, some good quality added there. A little bit harsh on the high end. So I'm going to add this EQ. And with the flat setting, it sounds like this. And now if we take this EQ and we start boosting and cutting some of the frequencies, it's literally like you get to explore the inner workings of this little stump here that's resting in the water. So let's start doing that. That's a nice pleasing area right there. That's right around 700 hertz. When you go to 100 hertz, like I stopped at 167, this literally gives you the feel like you're underwater. And so from this contact microphone, I get to really like explore the inner workings of this log that's sitting in the water. So join me on this journey. We're going to sweep through, we're going to craft and shape this sound to get a very pleasing ambient tone of nature, and we're gonna just basically like get it to a point where it sounds just really nice to listen to. So let's see what that looks like on the EQ. So if you noticed, I brought this number 2 down. I cut that frequency. That's right at 113, 100, you know, right in the shy hundreds. And when I did that, it took away some of that rumble, because that rumble, in my perception, can kind of give a little bit of uneasy feeling, like an anxiousness. So let's keep shaping here. Right there, when I made this low pass filter on the 6th band, that really took some of that gritty, like staticky nature out of the recording. So there we go. We're really getting some of that natural quality of the water to shine through, when originally we started with this. Big difference, right? And that is the draw and wonder of audio. When something sounds one way, we can use tools like EQ and a little bit of dynamic EQ, like some harshness, attenuation, to bring something that once wasn't that exciting to listen to. We can bring it to life. So let's go back to where we were with all the plugins. Ooh, see right there, 1,000, that boost to 1,000 hertz warmed everything up, and it just made it more comfortable to listen to. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. Now, what we can do is we can bring back, like, if you look at the Tascam up here in the image, I have the wind muff over it, but it's pointing more at the rushing water. There's like a slight waterfall above the image that you can't see, and it's capturing the detail of that water splashing. So let's bring that into the picture with the contact mic. Right away, there's some EQ changes that we can make to the stereo condensers on the Tascam. Let's go ahead and cut some of the lows. That little spike here, right here, in this area. It feels really good when we take that away. And that's basically what Soothe was taking out of the contact mic. But now we just took it out with EQ on a different track. So that harsh area is not present in both tracks. So what's fun about this is we get to really get to know the sound source through shaping it through EQ. We know as humans how we would hope to hear water, how we want to feel when we hear it, especially like a light trickle of water. And so I feel like this EQ arrangement that we have with these two tracks, it's starting to really get somewhere special. Without the condensers, That's the inside of the creek that you're hearing through the contact mic, which is nice in itself. A little rustling going on. Add back the condenser mic. Now with an additional EQ, I wouldn't mind adding some high end back in on the condenser mics. Now, if you listen closely, can you hear the birds? They're very hard to hear, so let's see if we can make them more prominent with the EQ. I can hear him chirping in there. And so that's just an added bonus of the atmosphere that I was in. Let's see. We can go over here farther. I have another video here. This is the setup. This is me over here on the slope by the creek. Doesn't look that steep on the image, but trust me, I was like worried that I was gonna slip in and my foot was gonna splash. But check it out. The waveform looks much bigger here, so we'll see how that sounds. Sounds like the birds got much more active in this area. So this is a really nice area. So the fun part about field recording and sampling, like there is so many uses for this type of audio. Like this could be playing at the beginning of a beat to just give like a calm intro to a song and just gives people a sense of a place and a time and a feeling. And so weaving these in to music is really fun. So that's the main purpose of why I went out there and captured this audio. I wanted to be able to chop it up into little pieces and put it on something like the SP404. So let's go ahead and dive in to that aspect. So we know this area here is a very pleasing area. So let's go ahead and find a nice chop. When I do so, I like to make the waveform pretty fat, and this doesn't change up the volume, by the way. And so as we zoom in, we can get a sense of where we're at. So we're going to play with this whole area. My guess is this spike right here is not an audio artifact, it's a bird. So let's test that out. I stand corrected. Wasn't really able to pick up what that is, but it's not hurting the audio. So moving along, let's go ahead and find our start point for this chop. What I look for in the audio is you have this center line on the waveform, right? See how it's divided in half? When the waveform rises and falls and it meets that center line, that is a great area to start your cut. So when you zoom in and you make this waveform bigger, you can notice areas where it's right basically at that start or in that half divider mark. So I know if I chop the audio there, when I play it, it's going to have a nice smooth starting. There's going to be no pops or clicks. So let's go ahead and group these two tracks. And we'll make that cut. So that is the first cut. That will be our starting point. We'll go ahead and just mark that start. So now we have this marker. As I'm listening, I'm trying to make sure there's not too much noticeable rustling or distracting noises in this chop that I'm about to make. Because what I'm trying to do is cut it in such a way to where if this loops, it sounds like it goes on forever, right? So even though I have a good, I don't know, we have 15 minutes of audio here. Well, we can basically make this chop here. Let's find the endpoint, and it will probably be only a few seconds long. But a few seconds long is all we need to loop and make it sound like infinity. So let's do that. We've got our start point. There's some rustling there, so we know we're not going to include this area. So right before it happens is where we can make our cut. Right along here. So now I'm looking for that cross point. When it crosses that center divide of the waveform, this looks like a good area here. So if I go in and I go right there, see how it crosses there? And it's pretty much crossing on both tracks. So we're probably pretty safe by making that cut there. We'll mark it, and that is our end point. Okay, this is where it gets interesting. So we have the processing, we have it all shaped the way that sounds pleasing, right? And this is 23 seconds long. So pretty substantial length. Meaning if that 23 seconds loops, it's harder to tell when it loops because there's so much to listen to in the chop. So I like the fact that it's 23 seconds. Let's take a listen to it. We'll put this on loop mode here in Pro Tools and we'll see how it loops. That was the loop. Now, if you were listening close, right in this area, I feel like there's a rustling noise. And so I'm going to notice that in the loop every time it loops. And sometimes that could be nice, depending on what you're layering with the loop. But to make it as clean as possible, let's see if we can get it to loop cleaner without that rustling noise. Here is the rustling noise. Right there. So we'll go before that point. I think right here we should be pretty safe. Looks like there's a good cross point for both tracks there. New end. Let's test this loop out. Sounds pretty good. The only way I could tell it's a loop is in the birds, but that's okay because, you know, each time the birds play, they're fairly random, and I enjoy hearing the birds every time. So knowing that we have birds in the loop is totally okay with me. So from this point on, I can export this sample. And the reason why I export it is I want to put it into this SP404 and assign that chop onto a pad. So let's go ahead and name it Log Creek Placitas. So we're gonna put it in the SP404 folder. The format for an SP404 sample is 16-bit 44.1K. I found that setting works the best, and I don't have any problems. I know you can bump it up to 24-bit. No, it's 16-bit. You might be able to bump it up to 48K, but to be safe, that's the settings if you all have an SP404 and you're having trouble with that. Anyways, let's go ahead and export that. Boom, it is exported. Let's go find that file. There we are. Log Creek Placitas. So I have this SP404 plugged in via USB-C to the computer. When I do that, I can control the SP404 from my computer. These are all the pads and the banks. So what I can do is I go to that folder with the sample right here, and I can grab that sample and I can put that sample on the pad. So now we have that sound right here. Nice, right? One thing we'll do is I also like the sound of just the contact microphone. It's interesting. It's not your typical water sample type of sound. And again, that sounds like this. It's got this like distant quality to it. It almost sounds vintage. And so that is what we'll export and also put on the SP404. So now that we have that all set up, we're going to go ahead and bounce this. Call it contact for the contact mic. It's a 10-second sample, so we cut it from 20-something seconds to 10 seconds. And, you know, that's always helpful because the file size is smaller. The storage of the sound, like you don't have to worry about storage issues, stuff like that. And it's just easier to manage. So now that that is exported, we will take contact sample. This is a waveform file, by the way. Oop, don't want that. We want the MK. We'll go ahead and put it on the sample right next to it. Since that sample is so short, it loads really quick. That's another reason of keeping samples short. And there's the contact microphone on the SP404. That was the full 10 seconds. We'll go ahead and hit loop and we'll see how it loops. We'll be able to watch the waveform here. Turn off the gate. I don't know if you noticed, but there's a little pop at the end here. And so what we can do is we can zoom in on the waveform here. Look at the end of the sample. Let's go ahead and find a nice, good cross point. Let's try this. Much better. I could live with that. Now that it's in the SP404, we can do some really, really cool stuff. Like we can add some effects. So let's go ahead. Try that out. That isolator totally took out the rumble. And that loop is much cleaner now. So here's the isolator effect. Can take out the high end. There's that rumble that we took out. See how it says low? Now it's just the mids that we're hearing. I really enjoy that. So we have our isolator on bus 1 effect. On bus 2, we can add a new effect. So let's go ahead and find a cool effect here. Give it that kind of vinyl noise. A 2-year-old cassette tape, because this is a cassette simulator. A That's got a cool character to it. So again, this is what we started with no effects on the SP404. Then we add the isolator. We add the cassette simulator. And now we have a really nice looping infinite sample that's 10 seconds long. So what we can do now is we can use tools like the iPad to add some, like say I'm trying to make like a long ambient sleep inducing piece of music. So check it out. We'll go right over to the iPad over here, and here we have something called Harmony Bloom. So let's go ahead and turn that sample off at the moment. And what we can do here is when I hit this play button in the bottom left corner, I have a sound that I've generated. And this sound is comprised of all of these effects. Got the Moog, got the wood synth, and the nerd synth. So here's what they all sound like by themselves. Nerd synth. We got the wood synth. Got a sense of these random notes. Reminds me of like nature, but it's given it that digital, interesting feel. So that's the wood synth. And then we got the Moog. All these effects that I just showed you are being triggered by this swirling graphic. Every time one of those dots crosses one of those lines, it triggers all these other synths that I just showed. Now you can get a good view. Now that is going, let's see how that pairs with the log sound. What's nice about this is the Harmony Bloom plugin here, the spinning wheel, it's always changing shape and changing form. So you're always going to get a random quality out of it because of the setting that I have on it. Now we can add the condenser mics on the Tascam on pad 1. That also has the effects isolator and the cassette tape. If we want to turn it down, we can do so. Maybe we turn up the Harmony Bloom. Maybe we want all the sounds to play. Turn that back down. That's starting to get really peaceful. So there you have it. There's a workflow that I've been involved with based off of adventuring, being curious about sound, loving nature, and I'm very excited to dive into the uses of this and see what kind of sounds can be created, how the sound could be shaped. So if you really appreciated this video and you enjoyed the journey of going into that log that was laying over the creek, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this sonic journey. So again, my name is Nick Johnson. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next video of Sound Shapers. You guys have a great one and stay inspired.